We're here today at Capital Link's New York Private Equity Summit. I'm joined here by Mark Gormley, managing partner at Lee Equity. And we just had the pleasure of finishing a panel on healthcare and life sciences investing here at the summit. And we're going to continue that conversation today. But first, Mark, before we get started, tell us a little about your business and what you do and how you come at the healthcare and life sciences sector.
So thank you for hosting the panel and thank you for hosting this. So Lee Equity is a middle market private equity firm. We're focused on two sectors. Healthcare services is one of our key two sectors. Within healthcare services, we're really looking. We have five investable areas or theses, and then we're dedicating meaningful resources to those theses, a combination of investment team and operating partners. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify entrepreneurs who have built great businesses that we could partner with them and help them generally institutionalize their business and then take those businesses through a growth transformation. We've been doing that same exact strategy in healthcare services for some 20 years now, and we've been been fortunate to have been very successful investing in healthcare services and approaching with that strategy in mind.
Fantastic. And I'll just introduce myself. My name is Chris Raphaely. I'm co-chair of Cozen O'Connor's Healthcare and Life Sciences Practice Group. We represent clients who invest in, seek investment for, and operate in the healthcare and life sciences space. And given all that's going on in the world, really, but particularly with respect to the incredible innovation we're seeing both in technology and on in the clinical areas, it's just such an exciting time to be in this space. And I wanted to get a sense, Mark, what sectors do you see the biggest investable opportunities today?
So the two biggest areas that we're really excited about are healthcare IT. Mm-hmm. We think if you broadly look at the healthcare landscape, whether you look at the healthcare systems, the payers, which are the insurance companies, or the providers, which are the physicians, they generally have been underinvested in IT. Mm-hmm. These businesses, we've all heard the saying, healthcare delivery is local, and these businesses generally have not have had heavy investment in it. And so we believe that the opportunity to bring technology to the RCM area, to the billing, collections, and credentialing, we're just at the still at the relatively early stages of that, and we think there's big opportunity. The second area that we're excited about is providing services to the senior market. If you think about the senior market in the U.S. today, it's some 80+ million people, and growing, very, very rapidly. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're aware we have 10,000 new seniors, and joining the Medicare payrolls on a daily basis. That means that over the next handful of years, we're going to have close to 100 million seniors, and no secret, the demand for healthcare as you age increases, and so we need to start providing them better services, and that means home care, providing care to the seniors in their home setting. It's good for the seniors. And for the patients, they like to be treated in their homes. It's also good for the system. It's dramatically less expensive than getting those same treatments in an institutional setting. So those are the two areas that we are spending most time on. We think they're both going to be very, while healthcare generally, the healthcare industry generally grows at mid-single digits, we think both of those sectors will grow at an accelerated pace.
When flipping to healthcare IT, when you're looking at, possible investments or companies in that space, how are you distinguishing between hype and true long-term growth potential with that particular subsector?
So I would say that AI is being discussed in every C-suite and every boardroom in healthcare companies. It's an industry because of the underinvestment that has occurred in the sector for a long period of time that is ripe for new technologies and in particular AI. And yet we're beginning to see some real applications, and trying to make whether it be trying to make the physician's life easier. Many physicians still spend a lot of time writing their notes for patient visits. There are some applications that are really terrific, do a world-class job of scribing those notes, so that they're step change ahead of some of the other note-taking services that we've had. There'll be a lot of for simple tasks, in particular on the payer and the provider services. There'll be a lot of the applications, the front applications, the collections applications. All of those will be be infused by AI. But the reality is, every one of our healthcare companies is piloting AI and in a variety of different departments. But at this point, it's still relatively early. I suspect the adoption will be geometric over the next number of years. But to date, the actual functioning applications in many healthcare companies are still at a pilot stage.
Great. Now, flipping back to the clinical side, you mentioned, can you speak to how healthcare services are different from other sectors when it comes to scaling portfolio companies?
So at the end of the day, you have to remember that at healthcare, the whole healthcare system is about delivering higher quality outcomes in more convenient, lower cost settings. That's how we think about investing in the sector. But at the end of the day, you have to have a patient there, and so while scaling healthcare services is something that is tried and tested, but we have to remember that the service that we're delivering is healthcare services to the patient. And that service is being delivered on a local basis. No unique insight, but healthcare is a local business, and healthcare changes by geography in every way that you can imagine. And so there's you can't, like in some other businesses where you can just go out and accumulate businesses on a regional basis to make it a national player. Here, you have to be careful because it's about the patient and the delivery of care, and done on a local basis. And yet, we and others have had important successes in that sector, but you have to do it very thoughtfully and very deliberately.
So you mentioned cost and quality, and often those two goals are seen, or looked at as being at odds with each other. How do you think about investing in models that can achieve both cost reductions and increased qualities?
So for us, investing in healthcare, we have a couple important tenets, and those are at the right top of ours. We have to provide the highest quality care in the lowest cost, most convenient setting for the patients and for the physicians. So all of our investments start with that bias, and an important tenet of all of our investments. But there's and I would say we it can be done. And it's done successfully. So for example, we've invested in the physician practice management business focused on the cardiology space. Just to give you a little bit of some interesting statistics, 25% of the U.S. population will die from some sort of cardiology ailment, and so that's a huge cost. It's an important issue that the system has to work with. Today, about 75 to 80% of all cardiologists see patients in a hospital or treat patients in a hospital setting. Generally, that hospital setting is at meaningfully more expensive to that particular patient, to its payer, and overall to the system. So one of our key investments in this cardiology business is, we're looking to build a network of the best cardiology clinics in the country, and an important part of that is beginning to migrate some of those procedures away from the hospitals into alternative settings, where they'll be provide high quality care in a more convenient setting for the patient, and at a lower cost for the system. So I think that the question, can the system? Yes, can the system produce higher quality care at lower cost? Yes, the answer is yes, and there's many models and successes in doing that.
Thank you. So, kind of looking forward now, what keeps you most excited about healthcare investing over the next 5 to 10 years? What really kind of lights your fire in that area?
So at the highest level, healthcare is still a huge industry. It's depending on how you count, it's a $5 trillion economy. It represents 20% of all of the GDP in the United States, and yet it's still a highly fragmented industry, and that really goes back to the point we talked about a minute ago, which is healthcare is delivered on a local basis to one patient at a time, and so highly fragmented industry, large, highly fragmented industry, growing rapidly, where you need to be very careful and thoughtful about the environments that you're treating patients in, the regulatory environments of the local states, the national states, and the types of patients you're treating. So we like that large growth fragmented market. Within that, we talked a little bit about some of the areas that we think there's some mega trends, mega trends that few other industries are experiencing, and that's certainly the healthcare IT. There are few industries in the country that are as large, as fragmented, and have had so much underinvesting in technology. So that's a ripe sector for investing. And then the other mega trend, of course, is the demographics that we talked about. The natural growth in the provision of healthcare services is high, and the tailwinds will continue to drive that growth for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's flip that question then, and what do you see conversely as being the headwinds for that investing in that sector, I should say?
So I think the highest, the most challenging and obvious are a complicated regulatory environment, both on a national level as well as on a state level. But for those of us who dedicate our lives to investing in the sector, that's of a less concern today. Frankly, for those of us on the ground who are looking for new investment opportunities, the biggest challenge has been the changes that have occurred in the healthcare investing environment. So if you think back over the last 5 to 10 years, about 50% of the healthcare investing activity in the healthcare services space has been in the physician practice management space. And the industrial logic behind that is pretty obvious. The physicians are facing bigger and bigger third parties. So the healthcare systems have consolidated, pharma has consolidated, the payers have consolidated, and largely the physicians had not consolidated. And so over the last 10 years, there's been about 50% of healthcare services activity has been in behind that thesis in the consolidation of the physician groups to allow them one to have more capital to invest in their own platforms, but also to allow them to be bigger, get the benefits of scale, the benefits of technology, and also to be able to have I would say, a more balanced negotiation with the payers and the systems that they are operating with. Over the last couple of years, there's been a recognition that the investments in the physician practice management space are really hard. For lots of the reasons we talked about. Your healthcare is delivered on a local basis, and so the PPM space it's easy to get into. It's very hard to build world-class businesses in it, and so there's been, from the private capital world, there's been less activity around the physician practice management space. What has resulted is that the capital and the investment professionals that were sitting there looking for opportunities in the healthcare services space haven't gone away. That hasn't changed. And so the competition for healthcare services investing is much more acute. So if you look at a number of sectors, where you look at the multiples over the last number of years, and they'd been had been relatively steady for years, and then over the last couple of years, valuations have increased dramatically. And so I think that's the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is, there's a lot of capital in the space. There's a lot of very good, very sophisticated investors, but the addressable market for us to make investments is much narrower. And so that just means you need to be that much more thoughtful, that much more creative, in finding or creating opportunities for ourselves.
Moving kind of out from, on that note, and as a final question, moving out from the clinical services space, I'm going to ask you to do a little prognosticating here. If you had to place a bet, which subsector, telemedicine, healthcare IT, gene therapy, or aging services will deliver the most outsized returns in the next decade?
So we touched on it a little bit, which just a few minutes ago, we think that you have megatrend tailwinds behind the senior market and providing of services to the senior market. Healthcare IT is still relatively early. It's an adoption curve. And then lastly, I think gene therapy. The changes here, the changes that are happening in that sector, that's not a sector that we invest in, but the changes that are happening with the advent of AI, and as soon as we can train the models such that AI can actually start really making a big impact and comes up with new therapy treatments through the use of AI, I think that is going to stimulate a lot of really interesting activity in that space. So at the highest level, I would say those three things will be are sort of big mega trends that are healthcare services investing will benefit from.
So I'm interested, particularly given your background, of the four choices, the one you didn't mention was telemedicine. Do you view that as like a standalone sector? Or is that going to be, something that kind of supports or is a, I guess a subsector of like clinical services or something like that? How do you view that?
So we're bullish on telemedicine. I would say there was, coming out of COVID, the amount of focus and interest in telemedicine was extremely high. That has come down since over the last 2 or 3 years, not because the demand is different, but just because patients can move. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there are a number of sectors where where there's a shortage of physicians in certain geographies or certain types of physicians, where I think those services can be provided on a telemedicine basis. And so we're still, I think there's still big opportunities in the sector, but there's been a lot of investing in that sector over the last 4 or 5 years. And so it's a big mega trend, but it's one that has already received a lot of capital in it. And so, from our perspective, it's not an area that we're dedicating a lot of resources to right now.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate the insight. A lot of exciting things going on, and thanks so much for helping out on the panel day and for doing the podcast with me. Thanks very much.